So here's what you need to know about EB-1A final merits. It's not a predefined threshold. There is no combination of activities that will automatically help you pass final merits. Because there's no predefined threshold, you should not think in terms of checking a couple of activities off a list, thinking that by checking off these activities, you will automatically be able to pass final merits. Instead, you should think about how you can present as strong of final merits as possible when it comes to your EB-1A profile. And how you do that is by trying as much as possible to focus on activities that show that you have risen to the top of your field and can be considered as evidence of sustained acclaim. Because you don't know how much you need to show to pass final merits, what you should be doing in that case then is to show as much as you can for final merits. Because when you're building towards EB-1A, you probably have limited time, limited resources, limited efforts. So wouldn't it make more sense to build not just towards the criteria, but also towards final merits as well? And this is where understanding the distinction between plain language versus final merits comes into play. You can do activities that check off the criteria, but that do not help with final merits, or you can do activities that both check off the criteria and help with final merits. Checking off the criteria, even if you meet, say, 3, 4, 5 criteria, does not automatically strengthen your case. There will be a point where the criteria will no longer be in focus, and instead the officer will be looking at final merits. And that is why you should be thinking about how to strengthen the final merits of your case by presenting as much evidence as possible, as high quality of evidence as possible, to show that you've risen to the top of your field and to show evidence of sustained acclaim, instead of just doing activities that meet the plain language of the criteria but do not really strengthen final merits. The most efficient way to strengthen final merits, and for profile building in general, is just to try to do activities that help with final merits and the plain language of the criterion. In other words, focus on activities that do show that you've risen to the top of your field and aren't just checkbox, checklist activities. Like, for example, focus on higher quality, prestigious journals. Get published in 1 or 2, instead of trying to get published in 10, 20 journals that are not prestigious, that are not very well known, that do not, on their own or even in total, show that you have risen to the top of your field. Remember that by applying for EB-1A, you're essentially claiming that you've risen to the top of your field. So if you can do as much as possible to contribute to that argument, focus on higher quality opportunities, you will automatically be working towards final merits. And you'll be able to present as strong of a case as possible versus thinking that final merits is just about the evidence you currently have, or perhaps some threshold you think you have already crossed by showing certain activities in your past work. If you think that way, you may potentially encounter a situation where an officer thinks that while you have met at least 3 criteria, in their mind, you have not passed final merits. Because you don't know where the threshold is, try to just work as much evidence into your case, as much high quality evidence into your case as possible that shows that you've risen to the top of your field. For example, instead of just relying on your critical role and high salary to make this argument, look into prestigious speaking opportunities, prestigious journals, prestigious board appointments, prestigious advisory positions. By focusing on prestige, you can then show that you have set yourself apart from other top professionals in your field, and through these activities as well as your critical role and high salary, for example, make the argument then that you've risen to the top of your field. It's about fleshing out this argument, providing as many dimensions to your case as possible instead of just relying on what you've already done. You don't know where the threshold is for final merits, so you might as well try to present as strong of a case as possible by, at the very start of your profile building, focusing on activities that can contribute to the argument that you've risen to the top of your field and not just there as checkbox items that help you check off the criteria but don't really contribute to the argument that you've risen to the top of your field.